What's up, everybody? Michael Walsh here. So I want to talk about Alex Pereira's win over Magomed Ankalaev on Saturday and just how impressive it is and just how much it does for his legacy because, everyone's celebrating right now. Everyone's happy this happened outside of Magomed's bizarre fan base. But, the lion's share of normal MMA fans are celebrating right now. And they're giving Alex his flowers and they're praising him. But I don't see a lot of people who truly realize how rare of an achievement this was and how unusual it is for a champion in Pereira's position to win a rematch like that. And so I'm going to look at some cases from history and draw some comparisons and show just how mind-blowing this actually was. Because typically when you have a champion who's getting up there in age, because Pereira is 38 years old, and if you saw my prediction video, which is getting traction right now and people are dunking on me because in hindsight, of course, it looks bad that I picked Ankalaev. But in my prediction video, I was not very optimistic for Alex, and a big reason was he's getting up there in age. And I thought in the first fight that he kind of fought like a fighter who was aging out of his prime. He fought like a fighter whose reflexes were starting to go, whose willingness to pull the trigger just wasn't there anymore. And thankfully, that isn't the case, and the excuses he had about being sick, about being hurt, those have a lot more credibility now in hindsight. But either way, he's still 38 years old, and even at light heavyweight, that's fairly old. And it's just very unusual to see an aging champion who's got multiple defenses take on a number one contender and lose. And not only a number one contender, but a clear number one contender. A clear contender who's on a massive win streak, who's almost partly cleared out the division, en route to the title before getting the shot. To lose to that kind of contender and then win an immediate rematch, that's nigh unheard of, okay? And bear in mind, going into the first fight, Magomed Ankalaev was on a 13-fight unbeaten streak. Now, I say unbeaten because there's the draw against Jan Blachowicz in there, and there's the no contest against Walker. But even those, the draw, a lot of people, myself included, it was very close, but a lot of people, myself included, thought Magomed should have won. And the no contest against Walker was a blunder on Magomed's part, but, he won the rematch, and we just all think he would have won the first fight anyway, so, those are almost wins. So it's almost a 13-fight win streak in effect that he was coming into that fight with, which is insane. And if you compare it to other contenders who had to put together huge win streaks before getting their shot, like Max Holloway or Kamaru Usman, it's a bigger win streak. And to lose a first fight against a contender like that and win the immediate rematch, again, pretty much never happens. And let's just compare some other people. BJ Penn fought Frankie Edgar, and Penn is one of the GOATs at lightweight. He was the defending champion. Edgar puts together a very nice resume as a contender. They have a first fight. It's very close. It's controversial. I think it's a split decision. Edgar wins. They have an immediate rematch, and Edgar just washes him. He just comfortably wins a unanimous decision in the rematch, and Penn, continues to fall out of his prime from then on. He gets a win here and there, but, he beats Matt Hughes in the trilogy. But in general, it's downhill for Penn after that. Excuse me. Look at Tyron Woodley against Kamaru Usman. Woodley is an older guy at this point. He's mid-30s, late 30s when he fights Usman. He's a defending champion. He had the two against Thompson. One was a draw, but it's a retention. He beats Maia. He beats Till. People are debating if he's the second best welterweight of all time. And then along comes Usman on this, I believe, 9-fight win streak. Comfortably beats him. There's no immediate rematch, but that's because Woodley couldn't fight his way back to one. He just went on to lose after that. He lost to Burns. He loses to Covington. He loses to Luque. It's all just this horrible tragedy from then on for Woodley. And even Usman himself, he had the same opportunity Alex had, but against Leon Edwards, right? Because same deal. Usman is this multiple-time defending champion. He's starting to get up there in age a bit. I think he's 35 in that fight, 34 at the youngest. And along comes Edwards. He's on this huge win streak. He has to win fight after fight after fight to get a shot. The first fight's close in a sense. Like Usman is like, it's competitive, but he's largely winning. And then of course there's the head kick knockout. They do an immediate rematch, and what happens? Usman just comfortably loses a decision to Edwards. And granted, Usman is an all-time great, and he's looking good now. He's got that win over Buckley, and he's actually sitting in a more comfortable spot as a contender now than Edwards is. But the point is, he couldn't win that rematch, or that trilogy fight, which is what it actually was. But the immediate rematch between his loss of the title to Edwards and the fight after, couldn't do it. Just did worse. And so again, like, this is very rare, and we even have like fights in the women's divisions, like Rose Namajunas beating Joanna Jędrzejczyk twice in a row, and the dynamics were a little different because she knocks her out in the first fight and then they go the distance in the second one. But in either case, Joanna couldn't win the rematch, even though she was this, defending champion, this like all-time GOAT of her division, couldn't do it. And so meanwhile, Alex Pereira, who loses a fight to a contender on a bigger win streak than any of those people I listed, a bigger win streak than other champions who had to kind of clear out their divisions before they got a shot, like Max Holloway had to do that, Junior Dos Santos had to do that. Like, Ankalaev was on a bigger win streak or a bigger unbeaten streak than any of those guys. He comes in, it's a competitive fight, but he clearly beats Alex in the first match. Alex is old. Like, everything is stacked against Alex. It's very much looking like it's going to be a repeat of what you typically see. Again, look at Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. Long reigning champ, getting up there in age, loses to this contender. Not even a contender on a great win streak or anything. A younger, undefeated contender. But nevertheless, contender comes in, boom, loses, have immediate rematch. Anderson loses the rematch. Like, this is typically what we see. And yet, Alex comes in, complete confidence, complete willpower, and just nukes him within a minute. And you can't call it a fluke. You can't say, oh, he just surprised him. Because we've seen fights like that. We've seen fights where a guy comes out and says, I'm just going to blitz him immediately, and I'm going to rely on physicality and aggression and surprise to just get him out of there right away. And it's going to look so one-sided, no one's going to want a rematch. Like, that has worked for people in the past. Look at Ngannou versus Rosenstruck. It's sloppy as hell, and Rosenstruck's actually landing counters and trying to dodge, but Ngannou just comes out and just, swarms him and gets the knockout in like 10 seconds. A more deep cut, look at Brett Rogers versus Andrei Arlovsky. It's the fight immediately before Rogers loses to Fedor. Same shit. Like, the fight starts and Rogers just bum rushes him, like, just pumping hands. It's sloppy, he just gets in his face, and he catches him at some point in that flurry and puts him out. And yeah, you watch it and you're like, oh, he just knocked him out in like 10 seconds. This was so one-sided. But it's like, if you know fighting a little bit more, you might think instead, like, well, that's a legit win and everything, and I'm not saying he would lose a rematch, but like, I'm just not convinced that would happen again because so much of it relied on the surprise. And don't get me wrong, Alex surprised Ankalaev. I don't think Ankalaev was expecting what he got. But it wasn't merely surprise and just a swarming offense that allowed Alex to win. Alex was tactical. Alex knew, yes, if I get in his face, it'll make him uncomfortable. Yes, his defense won't be as good. His ability to counter won't be as good if he's on the fence. That's all well and good. But he not only did that, and he did it, he set it up nicely, throws that big 1-2 to start off and just gets in his face, just takes the lead. But as people have pointed out, he throws the inside rear leg low kicks, lands a few of those, gets Ankalaev to switch stances, and then he knows, okay, his defense is going to suck out of orthodox. And what does he do? Instead of a left hook, overhand right. Something I guarantee Ankalaev was not drilling defense against. Defense against an overhand right out of orthodox stance for this camp. That's just great strategy. That's great tactics. And it was impressive because while the tactics were great, the willpower really came through. Because again, that he's fighting out of such a hole, coming into this rematch. Because again, just look at all the examples I listed. Alex was rightfully the fucking underdog. I know people are dogging on me for getting the prediction wrong. Ankalaev was the betting favorite for a reason. And for Alex to come out and just so clearly know he had this guy's number, like so clearly know this guy doesn't have anything for me. I know how to beat him. This will be over soon. I'm looking for the finish right away. You know, for him to come out in that way, it's such an act of sheer fucking will. You know, it's like the John Wick line. You know, it's like a Tywin Lannister or Batman level of just sheer, I'm imposing my will and my presence upon you, and you will yield to me. That was the energy that Alex Pereira brought in there. And that, you know, combined with his tactics, combined with his strategy, allowed him to achieve something that, again, like coming out of the hole he was coming out of, going into this fight, I've just never fucking seen before. Like, this is unprecedented. Like, it's not unprecedented that a champion wins an immediate rematch. That has happened. But under these conditions, against this kind of contender at this age, that has never fucking happened. Never. And honestly, like, Ankalaev is probably the best win outside of maybe the first Izzy fight on Pereira's whole record. You know, I think it's better than any of his other light heavyweight wins. I think it's better than the Strickland win. You know, and honestly, it might be better than the Izzy win because of the context. You know, because it's not a guy he has as big of a size advantage over. It's not, you know, it's when he's old and has this disadvantage. Again, it's when he's doing this against this contender on the win streak. Like, you know, it's against a well-rounded threat, a disciplined, you know, tricky, well-rounded threat in Ankalaev. Like, this might be his best win. And this, to me, elevates him in the GOAT discussion quite a bit. Like, if you go back, one of my first MMA videos on here is my top 20 GOATs of all time. And it's a long video. It's like 2 hours long. But spoiler alert, Alex isn't on the list. And with this win, he might crack that list. Like, this is a pretty big fucking deal. Like, this is, you know, as much as we were praising Usman for coming back at his age and beating Buckley, like, this might be a better achievement, I think. You know, this is pretty unusual stuff. And he absolutely deserves a shot for the heavyweight title. Like, he should be fighting Tom Aspinall next. I get it. You know, John Jones, you know, is a bigger name. It'll make more money. Yes, if he can, like, knock Jones out, that'll do wonders for, you know, his image in the popular eye. But as far as his actual resume and achievements, like, the true white whale is being the first triple champ and beating a guy like Tom Aspinall to do it. And I'm not saying I'd pick him to beat Tom, but I'm saying he's absolutely earned, you know, that shot. He's absolutely earned that position to go fight Tom, to skip the queue, to not have to fight anyone else at heavyweight, and to not be that big of an underdog, frankly. So that's all I got to say. Alex fucking blew me away on Saturday, and I think he should go for gold. He should go up to heavyweight next.